Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. My name is Sarah and today I'm going to be recommending books based on their 1-star reviews that I found on Goodreads. I'm gonna start off by saying that this is not an original idea. I was inspired by Starry Steph over at Instagram. She does these types of videos where she will just say the 1-star review and then reveal the book. So I'm going to be doing something similar, however, because she does reels and is short form, it makes sense that, you know, she just is pretty snappy about it. For me, I am going to be showing the book, giving a synopsis of the book, and then simply using the 1-star review as my pitch for the book. So similar to her, but I am going to be giving a bit more information, kind of just the synopsis of the book, but that is it. So synopsis, 1-star review, and I am gonna try really hard to keep my personal opinion out of this, because what I find really interesting about discussing books is how subjective it is. Obviously, there are many objective qualities to a book that can kind of like dictate whether a book is, you know, objectively good, but much of the reading experience is just so subjective, and what one person hates in a book could be another person's reason for loving the book, and I just find that super interesting. And I personally like 1-star reviews, like reading them, because they can be kind of funny, and I do like to see how oftentimes I will see people hating a book for the same reasons why I love it. And vice versa. I'll maybe hate a book for the same reason that another person loves it. Without further ado, I think I have about 10 or 11 books here that I'm going to be talking about. I will say I am going to be trying to talk more about books that I haven't mentioned on my channel for a little while now. I'm kind of bringing back some older favorites of mine. Some of these will be books that I have talked about recently, but I'm hoping some of these I'm going to be pulling in from older videos that I have discussed them in. Now, I will say the first book I'm going to talk about is one of my favorite books of all time, and I talk about it at any excuse that I have. That is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. In this book, we're following our main character who just quickly discovers a book that has kind of a piece of his life story in it. And he also starts discovering kind of these doors that may or may not lead to a secret underground library, and so he embarks on this adventure to discover what is going on with this library and why he has found a book that has a memory of his that no one else should really know about. The 1-star review that I'm using to recommend this is, "What? I just don't get it. There is no story, or am I just unable to find it? It's like a pile of beautiful things making no sense." And then the next book that I have to recommend is This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. This is a horror novel that centers around grief. So we're following our main character whose wife has just passed away unexpectedly, and he is writing almost a series of letters to her, kind of dictating all of these things that have started to happen to him that are very strange, kind of hauntings. And he decides that he, at some point during the story, is going to leave the house that he lived in with her and go out to this cabin in the middle of the woods. However, the things that are happening start to follow him there. I do have a couple of 1-star reviews to recommend this one with. First one is, "Alexa, don't haunt me. He should have tried that first." And "What is this? Techno horror? A dark modern fable? Fantasy? I can't. I cannot. It reads like a fever dream in spots, and dream sequences on a good day send me into a rage. So disappointed." Next, I have You Let Me In by Camilla Bruce. In this book, we are following an author who has gone missing, and it's kind of the year mark after she's went missing, and she's presumed dead. So her, I think, niece and nephew go into her house and kind of start looking at things. I think kind of due to her will, it was determined that if she'd been missing for a year, that they would just presume her to be dead, and that her niece and nephew then inherit everything. And they find a manuscript on her desk that details kind of the real story regarding a couple of things that have happened in her past that have made her infamous, kind of some trials that she was involved with that she was acquitted headed for, and she gives the story of what really happened during those events. And this is another one where I actually have a few reviews to go into this. I couldn't finish it. It was just too much for me. Very oddly creepy, not in a good way. DNF, I'm not sure what I was reading, but it was too out there for me. Weird, would not recommend. Too strange to recommend. Plowed through it waiting for some dramatic revelation, however, finished it completely unsatisfied. Very weird story. I tried, I really tried. I really wanted to like this book because of the reviews and especially the description. Granted, there are dark fantasy elements here that remind me of Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, but I just can't seem to be absorbed in the writing. There was a swap in narration that was particularly confusing, and realizing I was only forcing myself to continue. It's a tough book, but that never made me sidestep from any work. DNF. So next up, I have Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. This is the first in a 4-book series called The Books of Babel, and in this book we are following our main character Thomas Senlin, who has just recently gotten married, and him and his newly wedded wife are off to their honeymoon at this Tower of Babel. It is kind of this a feat of human ingenuity. It's where all of kind of the brightest individuals go. It's just got a feat of architecture, science, art, everything that is kind of the peak of human creation has culminated into this tower, and it is floor upon floor upon floor of just kind of these mini ecosystems. And right away, when the newly wedded couple arrive there, they very quickly get separated, and so this series follows Senlin as he travels his way up the tower in search of his wife. And again, I've got a couple of 1-star reviews for this one. I give up on this one. I thought it would be a great world and a fascinating story, but it was not. A man loses his wife and starts on a bizarre journey to find her in a town that apparently disappears people all the time and never gives them back. DNF at 45%. The writing was excellent, world building was unique, but it honestly just stressed me out. I have a tendency to overline with protagonists, and I just couldn't get into Senlin other than internalizing his anxious rigidity. I'm sure it's a fantastic read for some, just not for me. I can see why some people might like this book, but for me it just didn't work. I read more than 50% of it, so I did try to give it a fair chance. The whole book feels like video game side quests, which in video games is really fun, but in books can be a bit tiring. The things Senlin has to go through have no consequence, at least for him, which isn't making him grow as a person. He feels sorry for the persons that actually suffer from it, though. World building and concept were great. Main character was unlikable. DNF at 25%. Way too dark. Fascinating premise, but every level in the tower got worse and more depressing. And then next there's I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. So in this book we're following a couple, specifically we are following from the women's point of view as they are driving to the man's parents' house to have dinner with them, and all the while the woman just keeps repeating in her head that she's thinking of ending things with her boyfriend. And the 1-star review I have for this is, although this book is the book that made me think about it for months and months afterwards, compared to any other books, I still think it is haunting, weird, and not worth my time. Also, the Netflix movie made is the biggest piece of fucking shit, even for Netflix. And then next is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. This is a book that is kind of pitched to being similar to If We Were Villains in the sense of dark academia and kind of following a murder mystery and having that unravel like about a decade after it happened. We are following our main character who is going to her 10-year college reunion, and she's decided that she really wants to present herself as being kind of the more confident and beautiful, successful woman compared to what she was when she was in college. However, she is also having to face the 5 other friends that she went to college with. She was in this really tight-knit group that during her freshman year were kind of the it crowd, I guess. However, they were quickly torn apart due to one of them being murdered their freshman year. And so at this college reunion, they are forced to confront this murder, and somebody is kind of coming after the survivors and wanting answers because this murder was never solved. Now for this one, I do only have one 1-star review. It says, absolute trash. Who on earth would submit themselves to read about this narcissistic, materialistic, simplistic bunch of vapid jackasses. I think Goodreads' collective taste and my own are inversely proportional. And then next, we have How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. This is a collection of loosely connected short stories that, as you get further into them, you see those connections kind of strengthen. It is a pandemic-centered novel, and basically this virus that was entrapped in the ice in the Arctic Circle gets released to the rest of the world and quickly starts taking over the world. And it is a kind of sci-fi literary novel. For this one, this is another one that I only have one-star review to go over. This is a book about dealing with a pandemic, families coming together and falling apart, exploring new horizons of science and grief. I found it terribly sad, slow, and mournful. I didn't enjoy the experience, but I'm sure that many people will love it and find it cathartic. It reminded me of watching the movie Contagion, undoubtedly well made, but the heavy subject matter stopped me from actually enjoying the ride. The stories felt terribly real, the grief of the characters authentic. The stories in this book are short, but you get a sense for what each character is going through and what they care about. I would say that this book is less about the individual plots and more about the larger feeling, the feeling of dealing with disaster or caring for the dead, of caring about the world. Next, there is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This is a YA horror novel. It is following three sisters who 10 years ago disappeared off of their street, just kind of almost vanished into thin air, and then returned about a month later. Very, very different. Just physically, they looked very different, and they were described as just very odd and unsettling, yet alluring after that. And then we follow present day, 10 years later, as the youngest sister is just trying to finish graduating from college. However, her and one of the other sisters quickly realize that their third sister has disappeared, and so they are in search of her, and they kind of realize that her disappearance is linked to whatever happened to them 10 years ago, because the three of them, none of them remember, none of them really understand what happened to them 10 years ago, but they are about to find out. And the one-star review that I have for this is going to be a controversial opinion, because I only heard good things about this book, but I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. It was too creepy and disturbing and disgusting AF. It gave me literal chills, not in the good sense, and I wanted to DNF it since the beginning, but I'm a fighter and not a quitter, so I finished it, and in the process gave myself more paranoia and aversion to books where there are flowers sprouting out of some girl. There were moments where I couldn't read more, cause just no. I hope my brain will forget about this book quickly. 1 star after many pains. Obviously I wasn't the target audience for this book. And then we have Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is the first in a duology where we are following Laszlo Strange. He is a junior librarian and he has always dreamed of visiting the mythical city of Weep. Weep has kind of just disappeared off of the face of the earth, completely cut off from the rest of the world, and nobody really knows what happened to it. He's always wanted to go visit, but he's not really the adventurous type. But one day a band of adventurers come through and they are searching for people that have kind of a historical knowledge or different skill sets that they can then bring back to the city of Weep to help them solve a problem. And so while going there, Laszlo's trying to figure out what this problem is, and they're basically like, you're not gonna believe this, just wait till we get there. All the while he is dreaming of a girl, and he is wondering how he knows this girl or how she's involved in everything. And the review that I have for this is, the way the author writes is absolutely beautiful and descriptive. I wanted to highlight every line. I was easily drawn into the story right from the beginning and reread paragraphs simply to enjoy them again. However, once the ghosts appeared, I stopped. Not my thing. I really wanted to like this book, but couldn't finish it no matter how many times I tried. The plot was going in too many different directions: mysticism, religion, caste system, mental physical abuse, mythology, and alchemy. Add in scholars versus scientists versus zealots, and I just ended up wondering why I was reading this instead of something else. And then there's The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the first in the Daevabad trilogy. In this book, we're following a main character, Nari. She is a con woman in 18th century Cairo, and one day during one of her cons, she accidentally summons a jinn, which is very, very illegal to do, and so she has to flee the city with the jinn, who then just decides to take her back to his mythical city of Daevabad, and it's the story of her journeying there and then getting there and realizing that she is very much closely tied into the city without ever knowing it. The review I have for this one is very, very short, but I feel like it's got a pretty solid selling point to it. I can't be bothered to spend time on writing why it's crap. As soon as the zombies entered, I no longer found it worth finishing. And then lastly, we have For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. This is the first book in a YA fantasy duology. So in this book, we're following our main character, Red. She is the second daughter of a royal family who has kind of a, I guess, prophecy that says the first daughter is for the throne, the second is for the wolf, and Red being the second daughter in centuries, knows that she is destined to basically be a sacrifice to kind of this creature they don't really know, just simply deemed the wolf, who lives in the middle of this very, very creepy sentient forest, and she basically is supposed to be a sacrifice, and if she is deemed a worthy sacrifice, then the wolf will release the gods from capture back into this world. However, when she gets there, she very quickly realizes that what the rest of the world has understood that has been happening in this forest is very wrong, and so she has to kind of figure out now what her part in this kind of forest happenings is. And I've got one-star review for this. It says, "Perhaps I'm just not in the market of dark fantasies that take themselves too seriously. I feel like the writer is good with language and constructing sentences, but in making every sentence drenched with baseless melodrama, I could not feel a single grain of sympathy for the characters. If you want to make emotions to count, don't make every single one something so visceral and extreme, or else it's empty." Alright, so those are the book recommendations that I have based off of one-star reviews that I found on Goodreads. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below if you found any books that you love based off of one-star reviews. If you've ever given kind of interesting one-star reviews yourself, let me know down in the comments below. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you consider sticking around and subscribing if you haven't already, and as always, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!